Okay, welcome to my first game that I deem worthy to be casting for Heart of the Swarm between myself in gear in the rear, Anavrin, versus some Barcode dude. And it was a ZvT, and I played it, and it was a really long game. As you can see, it was 32 minutes and a half almost. And it was very stressful, as stressful as one of those Wings of Liberty ZvTs, but the strategy involved was quite Heart of the Swarm based, as there are more tools for both sides to use in a late game CVT. So, starting off, I'm on the top right, and the Terran's on the bottom left of Daybreak, if you haven't noticed. And, oh, I didn't even notice. He had a very early SCV trying to block my expansion off with an engineering bay, but I guess his timing was just a couple seconds off, and I get a hatchery down. I still 15 hatch. I think a lot of people still 15 hatch as well, as nothing has really changed early game except for Reapers. And Reapers, they do kill workers in 5 Reaper shots, so it shouldn't really be a problem for people to 15 hatch, as the Reapers, you can easily micro your drones away until there are like more Reapers, like 2 or 3 Reapers, where they start two or three shotting your drones, and then you should worry. But by then, your hatch is done and your pool is done. So he opens up, this Terran player opens up with a CC first and a barracks. And since I know this, since with my drone scout, that I drone scouted a regular 13 to 12 supply, I can see that he has no anti-air quite yet until his marine is out of the barracks. So every time a worker comes out in my attack range, I start just harassing it a little bit, and I can see my overlord there, keep it there to see when the CC is finished, while I keep droning up and do my own pleasantries. So knowing this, the barracks is finished. It's enough time for me to move my overlord all the way back here. Usually, usually if they don't go CC first and they go Rax Command Center or Rax first, I usually have my overlord here, and if it's safe, I move it from here down over to here so I can scout it and sacrifice it later on. And my natural overlord is queued up in that position to scout the gases and such. And now I see that so he does this stuff, and I don't know this quite yet, but obviously. So I just let him, oops, I just clicked a bad button. And I just let him do his own thing while I do my own thing. And that is get my queens up. And I decide to go for a little HotS thing where I do a roach pressure, but instead of just roaches, I tried for burrow. So I do start trying to mine gas. I fail here, obviously, a bit. But I like to get 2 geysers up, get that burrow upgrade going, and then start getting a roach warren and pumping out a wave of roaches. And when I mean a wave, I mean away from 2 hatcheries, so like 8 or so roaches, which is what ends up happening here. I only go for 1 extra queen as this build. Oh, I didn't go for an extra queen, or I made it at the wrong hatchery. Nope. Oh right, because since roaches were quite larva non-intensive and more money intensive in this early game, I decided to spread the creep so the roaches get out to their base quicker, as opposed to I'm constantly injecting with both hatcheries, which forces me to kind of be down on money. But now I'm getting up there. I'm saving up money and saving up larvae for the roach production. Whereas because I really wanted to have burrow, because I was kind of scared of stuff like widow mines and that sort of thing. So I can really burrow and heal my roaches up before they start dying off, and get as much value out of them for a measly 100 for the burrow. And after I start making my 9 roaches, I guess 9, I start to go back into macro, as I have skipped ling speed, and now I just started, because I really just want roaches, these 9 roaches, to do as much as they can and to go straight back into macro. Of course, my opponent sees that I hadn't take a 3rd yet, so I guess he was a little bit scared and had this nice little setup here and have a widow mine burrowed. And he has decided not to go for Hellions, as Hellions wouldn't really do much, I would hope, because the roaches are en route to its base. So if they see the Hellions have to come back to defend, or they have to. If they don't come back to defend, then it'd be a very big problem. Or if they go straight for my base, my queens can wall off and wall off this main small ramp here, and I can bring the rest of my drones back into my main until my ling speed or roaches come up to defend against the Hellions. But so far, I see this. I see 2 Hellions, and I'm kind of a little bit scared because I don't actually know if there are. Well, I do momentarily, but I don't actually know if there are Hellions out on the map about to run my base, or if he actually went for Widow Mines or quick siege tanks or whatever. So as I see that Widow Mine come hit me, I spread my units out quite far off because I do not want to get this roach killed. And knowing that this has a Widow Mine has a 40-second cooldown, I immediately burrow it. I do not know how many Widow Mines there are, and I end up burrowing as much as I can to sort of save my roaches. He pulls his SCVs as he realizes that he can't really mine pretty well because my roaches are coming around and flank him until his Widow Mines are able to come out and shoot stuff again. All in the meantime, I am making tons and tons of drones and getting my layer up. I don't actually exactly know what I'm... and getting my second Evo chamber up. In ZvT matchup, I don't exactly know what's the best route to go, because usually in ZvT, you would just normally go melee upgrade and carapace upgrade, but with roaches, the addition of roaches, you sort of have to treat them like ZvP, where you need lings, roaches as both ranged and melee units, because you need these sort of units for different occasions. So I think the best way to go about this is to sort of spread out your upgrades, as in get 1 carapace and 1 melee, and the next one go 1 range and 1 carapace or melee, or like 1 range, 1 carapace, and then this will be fully upgraded, and then the last set of upgrades you upgrade melee and range. So like sort of spread them out so they all finish at the same time but take longer, I guess. I don't think the 3rd Evo chamber is quite worth it, but this is what happens. So the harass actually, it seems like, it slightly favors the Terran player, but I did force him to stop mining quite a bit, and I forced him to not be able to do anything with his Widow Mines except for defend. So I think I came out ahead a little bit here, but I am floating a lot of these resources, and if I wasn't, then maybe I would be more ahead, as I now start to take a sort of 10 supply lead. And you have to realize I don't really have much of anything. These are all drones, as my army supply is, obviously counting the queens, it's much significantly lower than my Terran opponents, and my workers are quite ahead of him as well, but obviously he has mules. So I start getting my roach speed as people start to go more roaches or hydras against Terran, since they have more stuff available to them. And I start morphing Overseers because I'm really sort of scared of all the Widow Mines that I saw he had before. I don't think I've quite scouted my opponent yet, but I'm just sort of waiting for that. I think I had an Overlord, but he kills it here. Or maybe I just had something, or, oh, I guess I scout it now with the Overlord speed. And CSC has this 3rd. And this is actually, in my opinion, what I was thinking in this game was that it was kind of early for a 3rd, and I have roaches with speed and burrow, so it shouldn't be too hard for me to start poking around with these roaches, trying to get some damage done, going back and burrowing them, sort of like a ZvC style, stuff you don't really usually see in a ZvT. So that's what I decided to do, and I guess I'll start poking around. And I'm really hesitant about those Widow Mines, as couple shots of those will start killing everything. And I have to make sure my Overseer is staying back, because if that gets one-shotted by a Widow Mine, then I have no detection, and I can't really do anything. And I force his stim out, and I force him to lift off, which is good enough for me, as a creep takes quite a while to receive, I guess, and him to land it back to start mining from the 3rd, whereas I'm getting my 4th base, as I have constantly need to remind myself, every time you are taking map control, you should ask yourself if you can take another base. Usually, half the time the answer is yes, and if the answer is no, it's because you're probably like in a very critical situation where you need to defend all your bases and you really can't afford grabbing a 300 mineral hatchery, or 350 including the drone. So in this case, I couldn't actually take this expansion. Maybe I could have took it here, but it would be vulnerable to a drop. I don't really know, but I know what did end up happening was my units were quite late, and I decided to actually engage here despite knowing that there are a bunch of Widow Mines, as I did see them burrow, and I do see them with the Overseer. And you might, if you just A-move into this, all your roaches will die. So I tried to sort of get a really, really good concave, really good concave, and that's why Strat 4 obviously could have been better. But since these Widow Mines do actually take priority, as I just learned playing this game, that they do take priority, so like it's not an SCV where the roaches will skip the Widow Mine and start attacking the stuff behind it. It will actually take priority, and these things cost 75 to 25, so a little bit almost to a Marauder. So getting those kills are definitely good for me. And I don't know if I should be moving back or whatever, but since he decides to do this, I would really like to burrow these roaches as they are quite fragile. But I see that he has a phase booted, as I like to call it, because there's an item in Dota called phase boots where you activate it and you get a significant move speed. So instead of calling this ignite afterburners, I'd rather call it phase boots. So he does kill my Overseer. That's just sloppy hotkeying from me, and I do try to engage this, and I do try to get infestors out. And the reason I get infestors instead of like something like a Viper was because I really needed crowd controlling units. When I mean crowd control, I mean like banelings or infestors. Vipers simply don't do the splash damage necessary, because usually in a Wings of Liberty ZvT you go Ling Baneling and infestor or whatever, and that really helps you kill all the Marines or make them run ASAP. But if you have roaches on Marines and on bio, they don't really run. They sort of fight, and the medevacs sort of heal them up. So I need that extra DPS, and a Viper doesn't really provide that, as they merely just run away. And you have to remember that infestors are a much quicker unit to get than a Viper, as it only requires an infestation pit, and getting the hive to get a Viper from already having an infestation pit is kind of weird. The swarm host, I don't quite trust it quite yet, as I just repeated quite there. I don't quite trust it yet, because something as mobile as Stim Bio can really kill swarm hosts really quickly, as Marauders just sort of hammer out the 20 damage shots or whatever they have with the upgrades. And I did get an extra macro hatch here, as I really thought that I really needed a lot more units, as I didn't know exactly what to make yet. I probably needed more like roaches and lings, as opposed to like quick, you know, more intense units like corruptors, because in other matches you need high money units like hydras and infestors that are much more expensive than lings and roaches. But I decided I needed more lings and roaches. That's why I decided to get another macro hatch. And as I started upgrading my units, this is 2-1 at the moment, as I've started branching out my upgrades, as I said earlier. So I get a melee, and then a range, and then I'll finish off with a melee or something like that. So I see that he took a really greedy base, so I start to attack him and catch his army out. And when I catch this is a pretty good engagement for me. And getting these tanks, maybe I should have focused the tank first, obviously, as it would, you know, provide less losses. And the units loss tab is relatively even, but I am, once again, the only advantage I have right now is that he can't really push out, as I have map control, and that is the only thing I know. And I start streaming lings in here because I really need the gas for hive tech, whatever I'm getting. So lings, since I started upgrading them differently, they are still viable. Obviously 2-2 lings would be better than 2-1 lings, but you know, what can you do? Maybe you should get a third. Maybe I should get a third evo chamber. I haven't really discovered the need for that. So I wanted to press into his base, as I did catch a large part of his army out, but once again I'm very wary of Widow Mines. And this is a little cool trick that I just thought up spontaneously with my genius brain, is that, hey, I don't have enough energy for a fungal, and I don't think I can quite fungal in a fortified siege tank position. So I'll start throwing out infested Terrans. If I throw them out, then it will probably proc a Widow Mine, or bait a Widow Mine to hit the infested Terrans, wasting their 40-second cooldown charge, and I can come in. But as I could see right here, there was no Widow Mines, and my Overseer does come here, and I start to push. And we'll see how this goes on, as Resources Lost tab is still up there. And causing that to lift is very good. Killing some of these SCBs are also very good. I didn't kill quite as many. But you do have to remember, I don't have any fungals and I don't have any banelings. So all that's coming in here are roaches and lings. And it does seem like I may have an overwhelming army because I'm already in a siege tank's phase. But Marines and Marauders and Medevacs are really good. And if I had, like a blinding cloud right there, but where he can't really back up as I'm sort of in his face already, that'd be great. But my hive is still on the way. It is only 16 minutes and 43 seconds. Obviously, it could have been faster, but I still don't think that with this sort of play that you could really get out that fast of a hive and have enough energy for the blinding cloud. Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I should do that. But obviously, in this game, in this situation, I don't. So I realized that, okay, I lost my entire army, but it's okay because he lost most of his army too. And I do see these extra CCs, and I know that he's about to try to spread his Terran dirty muling hands all over the map. And I have to have a good, quick army to stop that. And I start for lings, and I don't really like these. I don't really want to stay on lings too much, but I see that he has started to drop me, as my vision is actually pretty poor. It might be, a good part of this map, but here's like the optimal drop route, and I really didn't see it. And I decided that since he started dropping, he's trying to distract me from getting his expansions. And with this Overseer, I do say that he's getting an expansion, and I need to get a hive tech to start stopping him from muling all around the map. So I try to get active on my lings. This base is really late. It should have been taken during that attack and finished and fortified already, but one reason or another I didn't do it. And I started getting a Great Spire because I know that Marine Marauder tank is really good against ultras, and I shouldn't really do that, but I haven't really had confidence enough to use a Viper yet. And this is me just being stubborn because I really don't want to gamble this entire game on misusing a Viper. So I do start getting ultras, and then I start deciding I need Broodlords afterwards because I really need to cancel this base immediately. And his Marauder count isn't, well, it is actually pretty high, but it isn't high enough to the point where it's dominating this entire army. Like, no siege tanks, fewer Marines, and just more Marauders and Medevacs, which is like the ultimate ultra killing thing. But instead, it's still relatively new, and my Greater Spire is just finished, and I started add-on Corruptors as I know that I can't make ultras anymore. So I come in here, max out, and my Infestors are lagging behind, and it's pretty bad because I could have got a couple of good fungals off, but then again, the siege tanks could have definitely killed me. And this projectile thing, as I see that I've pressed into him and he has to back off. Now this is a really optimal fungal spot, and he can't really move down until I've killed his planetary, which is my plans all along as he tries to move down. And I do end up killing most of his army. And, well, not most of it, but a lot of it. And I disrupted his mining, and he's still on 3 base, and he's still mining these 3 bases, and he's sort of going dry compared to my 5 bases that I can mine, but I haven't yet because I was maxed beforehand. And this sort of goes on. I'm getting my upgrades. They were a bit late, obviously, as I am not like a GM. I am just I was diamond in this replay, but I'm actually masters now, which is kind of funny. As I remember in my Wings of Liberty endeavors, it took me like 2 seasons to get masters, but like in Heart of the Swarm, it took me like 2 days. So I guess that's sort of expected. And I still have my units out, defending these drops and stuff, as I've learned that drops are really good for Terran. And I realize he still has his composition, and I start to go into Broodlords, but I don't exactly have the resources, and that's a consequence of me not taking these bases earlier and start mining from them earlier. and I don't have quite the attention span to saturate these gases quite yet. So I start pressing into with 4 Broodlords, and 4 Corruptors, and a little bit of Banes. Bane's actually not in the army. A little bit of Ultralisk and splash of Lings. And right now I'm very wary that this is obviously a very good spot for Terran to engage. Vikings can go anywhere they want and start sniping all these things off. Marines and Marauders are great in these pushing back where they can kite whatever they want. And so I realize I might not be getting out of this situation alive. And I don't really need to push into here, but because I'm still keeping him on 3 bases, whereas I'm on 5. Every second that goes longer in this situation, I'm sort of more ahead. But I got way too over eager here, and I lost my entire army as I realized I can't exactly kill these Vikings because they have such a huge range of 9 on their anti-air. And I still have, and I back off with the rest of my army, knowing that I am pretty screwed unless I make a good decision and make a better army. So, right now, I'm like, okay, there's tanks, there's Marauders, there's Marines, and there's Medevacs. And hopefully, since he thinks I was just making some Broodlords, hopefully he's going to make more Vikings. And so, right now, I just go like, okay, how about Ultras, these Ultras from before, some Hydras and some Banes, as I really need to kill this army, and as it is very, very tough. Tanks and Marauders are very high in health, and along with the Medevacs and Marines, and Vikings don't really do anything against Hydras, as Hydras do kill Vikings, and if they do kill the Vikings, then I have a better chance into going back into Broodlords and air. And my Hydra speed is just about finished. And I attacked knowing that, and I wanted to see what was going to happen. So, this fight goes on, and I'm attacking fully into a choke, but since Hydras have such DPS and they aren't as slow as before, and the Ultras and Lings are in their face, he was forced to back out really, really quickly as he sieged up all his tanks in the front line. So I took advantage of that, and I started chasing his army. And Fungal, since it has a range of 10, even though it might be a projectile, it does reach longer. And even if it doesn't hit, it will at least scare him away. And by now, my Banelings are all gone. My Hydras are still shooting, as they are the last one to take damage, obviously compared to, along with Infestors in the army. And so, right now, I'm like, okay, that fight wasn't the best I could have done. It was actually pretty even. And getting this army and getting all these Medevacs right here was great, because he is low on Medevacs because he was just producing Vikings. And he doesn't have any Medevacs, or 1 that's right here with the drop. And now, what could I have done to make that fight better? And then I just start to realize, okay, Vipers, because I need to Blinding Cloud those tanks so they don't, demolish half my army. I need to Blinding Cloud those Marines and Marauders so they don't kill the Banelings. They have to just run away without shooting or kiting at all. And I'm starting to slowly realize it, and I'm like, okay, I start to need Vipers too. And and these pure Hydraless armies are very weak, and I know this, and I was very, very, very strong on, very stubborn into killing that 4th base, because he is still on 3 base, and he is starting to dry out before. Like, before he was still somewhat, low on minerals, but now he's really, really low on minerals, and the supply is very, very skewered in this point. And I'm like, okay, it's time to get some Vipers. And I was really scared because I didn't know what to expect to micro both Vipers and Infestors at the same time. So obviously I was very, very scared. And since I have an extra macro hatch, you can start eating. But since I did upgrade everything in the evolution chamber, as my Zerglings are 3/3 and my Hydras and everything else, so I can start eating the Evo chambers, as they are kind of useless, and eating these buildings up will sort of it'll just be best for my Vipers. The thing about Vipers I realize is that since Zerg buildings heal over time, you should never eat an entire building and let it die. You should sort of leave it at 1 health. So then when it regenerates, you're sort of regenerating more energy by letting your buildings regenerate for a free cost. So don't sort of eat all your buildings, you know, just sort of leave it at a health, and obviously you can transfuse it after with your crappy queen energies. Anyways, I have a very, very potent army of banelings, speed banelings, ultralisks and hydralisks and infestors and vipers, and I would really love to have tested out against an army that was maxed for Terran in the same composition, but obviously that is not going to happen. And I know this, as I know that he has just started to mine this 4th base, and it was time for me to attack him again, and I'm still on 5 base. Every time you attack, you get map control, so I decide to expand again. So here we go. I've ducked some tanks, that's kind of cool. And actually, this was kind of fun. This game was actually kind of fun, because I realized it's not actually that hard to micro both infestors and vipers. You just have to have them on a separate hotkey group. For me, what I usually have is 4 hotkey groups of 2, 3, F1 and F2, or something's F1 and something's F2. 0 is F1 and this is F2. And on 2, I usually have like Broodlord Corruptors, but since I don't really have Broodlords, I made everything on 3. And I had the Banelings. I try to have the Banelings on a separate hotkey, so when I A move something, I can sort of drag the Banelings instead of the Banelings crashing into whatever they meet first. And the thing great about Fungal and Vipers are that you can just sort of cast like a Fungal and then cast a Binding Cloud, and then by the time you finish casting the Binding Cloud, the Fungal should have like sort of ended by then, since it is 4 seconds. So you have a 4-second window to cast another Fungal. Or you could have do the other way, where you used to do Blinding Cloud or Abduct, and then you Fungal, and then you sort of Abduct more, and you do more Blinding Cloud, and then you Fungal again. So it's actually a very, very good, easy micro, as opposed to what I usually thought of microing 2 spellcasters was sort of hard, but it actually isn't at all. And what ends up happening was that I could Abduct Siege Tanks, and I could Binding Cloud, and I just sort of destroyed this army. The only lost supply I had was, you know, some Ultras, some Hydras, and the Banelings. Pretty much the Banelings were what I really lost, and I haven't lost too much. And finally, in this final fight, I start to pull ahead in resources lost. And obviously, you have to keep in mind that he was 150 supply versus my 200, even though I had slightly more workers than him. So, on that note, I sort of deny this expansion once again. And in ZvT, it's really dependent on the bases, and in late game TV anything, you can't really let the Terran mine off different bases with just a planetary, as planetaries are incredibly hard to kill late game if you don't have a maxed out army and your army's split, and the muling is just crazy. It's just money for energy, and since it's spread out bases, I would like to say it's free money, because it's not a base that you can, that's not really in your vicinity to grab easily. It's a base that's sort of out there. Like, say he floated in a command center here and made a planetary, and then he can start just muling this, and this base, he's not really going to take it for long. He doesn't really care about that base. It's not a base like his natural or his third or his main or whatever. It's a base that's just, you know, out there, and it's incredibly hard. And I'm just like, okay, let's just mass ultras, because I know I won, and he doesn't really have Marauders or Medevacs left to defend against my attack. And so I'll just speed through the rest of this replay. And once again, I tried to leave my buildings so then they could regenerate health. You can also eat extractors that are dead, or just extractors in general. You can always eat your macro hatcheries, preferably over your real hatcheries. You should never eat stuff like your Greater Spire or your Hydra Den, or, you know, any tech building. You should always eat these extraneous buildings. And I guess in late game, where it's like in late game whatever, and you have a bunch of spine crawlers and spore crawlers, and you don't really need them. If you do need them, if you have an extra base that's really undefended, or a base that's defended but not defended enough, just put your spines there. But if you really just have like extraneous spine crawlers, or it's really difficult where you have to eat your spine crawlers, then sort of like cannibalize them, and think about that. But I'll just speed through the rest of this game. And I just save Wall because I see the Manhur Muling. Well, it's not really Manhur, he just really needs a tank, but I guess he knows that he is sort of fucked here, and he just loses the game. And that was a very entertaining game for me to play. Actually, I was very scared about the Viper and Infestor micro, but I hope that game sort of helps understand HotS a bit more, as it did for me a lot for ZvT. And thanks for watching. Until next time, it is Anavrin from Kieran the Reader.